welcome to the next episode of CISO Talks. Today we've got with us Gary Hayslip, who's been within the sector for many years now, has held pretty much every position you can think of in the sector. And what we've really come to like to discuss and to ask really is that obviously, Gary, you've now probably mentored many aspiring leaders and CISOs, and what really is like the key aspects of the job that like take people by surprise, and what's really changed a lot in maybe the last 3 years with everything that's going on in the world at the moment. Like, what are the biggest changes you're seeing?
See, how much time do we have here? Well, the first part of the question you were asking about, some of the key aspects of the job that kind of catch people by surprise. What I find interesting is that, I get people talk, to me all the time that, hey, my son's going to be going into cybersecurity, and someday he wants to be a CISO, or she wants to be a CISO. She's coming into cyber, and she aspires to go ahead and be able to, and I'm like, definitely go for it. I think some of the things that kind of catch people by surprise is, the Chief Information Security Officer role, the CISO role. It's not something that you go to school for. It's not something that you can go ahead and come into the security field, because the security field itself, getting into the field itself, even at entry level, takes a bit of work, and surprises people how hard it can be. And then the CISO role itself is, you're basically talking about a senior level executive that she or he has been working in the field for at least 8 to 10 years, and probably has several engineer or architect roles underneath their belts, and they've led multiple teams before they finally get selected to be a Chief Information Security Officer. And so that one thing that I think surprises people is the fact that, hey, this usually takes about 10 to 15 years of experience to go ahead and get, in the seat and to get the title. And then I think the next thing that kind of surprises people about the role is that it's just unrelenting shit, just straight up. You work 24/7. It's not one of those jobs that you go ahead and go on vacation and you can shut your phone off and everything, and you don't have to worry about communicating with anybody for a couple of weeks. No, you're on call. Security is 24/7. Period. And if you're running security teams and protecting a company and protecting their assets, especially if it's a major multinational corporation, unless you've got yourself a very, very good team, you don't totally disconnect and not talk to anybody. You're always going to be on call and talking to people and managing risk. And so the job is unrelenting. The stress can be phenomenal. I've written about it. I've talked about it. I've mentored CISOs on the fact of self-care and self-resilience. You've got to take care of yourself, because this job will eat you alive and burn you out. These are things people don't realize that happens with the job. In fact, I've had multiple people who've done research on this, and they equate the stress to the job is to that of a first responder, or like somebody, somebody who did 20 years in the military like myself. The stress is very similar to when I was deployed in combat. It's just one of those things that, and what it is it's this constant nagging, this constant on you, because even as you finish projects, there's new things. Even as you finish dealing with threats or finish dealing with emergencies, you've got something else, and you've got something else. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. There's just the mission. There's just what you are there for to do with your teams, and you've got to keep them focused. And it's daily, over and over again. And it's the discipline that's involved in doing the role and managing the teams and managing the risk. It's the boring monotony of managing and monitoring controls and and protecting a company. And every once in a while you get excited and holy crap, you found something, and you're threat hunting and you're cleaning it up, and then afterwards it gets back to where it's quiet and you're working, and then and then you're dealing with it and it gets quiet again. people don't realize that. They don't realize that, that's the job. It's not something where you're sitting in an office nice and quiet and you're just handling paperwork, and you occasionally log in the computer and look at stuff. That's not even close, and so I kind of warn people, as they're striving for that role and they're working really, really hard and going through different, they've been a security engineer for a while. Now they're a security architect, and maybe they finally get up to director level, and and she's managing her teams, and she's finally going in for her first CISO role. Just giving them, a gut check that, hey, this is what you're walking into, and you're going to be held accountable for the management of risk of that organization, and how you and the program that you put together and how the teams are managed with the budget that you're given, and even now some CISOs are now looking at lawsuits. Some CISOs are now answering to lawyers and answering, to some, things that are winding through the court right now because they didn't do it correctly, or they didn't follow due diligence, or maybe they stepped out of what they were, what their remit, what they were allowed to go ahead and do. There's a lot of different things out there now that, and this I think touches into the next part of your question, where I think the role is changing, is that because of the threats, because of the risk that business today is dealing with, and just the impact, just the unrelenting, vicious impact that some of these threats have on companies, to the point to where they bankrupt them, or to the point to where even on the medical or on the hospital side, where they believe patients have probably died because of some ransomware attacks and attacks on infrastructure.
Absolutely.
What's happening now is, I think I believe it, and many of us, practitioners, or many of us executives who are in the field, are seeing it as well. We are becoming executives of the company. We're becoming involved in leadership teams. We're actually sitting on boards, or we're reporting to boards now. When the business is doing large new opportunities, that they're going to be pivoting, and hey, we're going to come up with this new product, or we're going to looking at these new services, or we're looking at doing M&A and acquiring this company. CISOs are finding they're in the middle of that now, and that they're having to deal with risk. They're having to hire a third party to assist them to review, so that they can go ahead and speak to, this is the impact of the business, these are issues that we're going to have to change. If you're going to M&A and purchase this company, their technology stack and tools and everything are this, ours are this. Here's the gap. Here's what I would recommend, for the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, to reduce the risk exposure to the company, so that we can move forward with the acquisition. We're seeing more of that. You're seeing a lot of that now with us, where 5 years ago you weren't involved so much with the leadership team, and now you are part of the leadership team, or you're very close to it. And honestly, I mean, in a lot of ways, there's more professional risk exposure to us, and there's ways that many of us are looking at managing that. But also at the same time, I think it's also refreshing, because I think that's where the CISO should be. This role, and the value that, when it's being done right, when the teams and the program are being done right, the value you bring to the business, you should be at that level. You need to be at the leadership team level. And the reason is to be effective, you need to be able to see across the organization what people are doing, so that you can make changes, so that you don't get in the way. Because you're supposed to be there. You're supposed to be there to bring value, not get in the way and slow the business down. Now, there are times where you need to be able to say, hey, wait a minute. Before we do that, here's some things to go ahead and some things that we need to be talking about here. The SEC says this, or FCA says this. And so you can have that discussion. And so you can have that business discussion, and we as a team can make a decision of, oh, okay, then let's do it this way. And then we still move forward. You're not going to stop the company from doing something, but at least you can have that discussion on risk. And do we have mitigating steps that we can put in place? Do we need to bring in a third party? Or are we just going to accept that risk? But at least you've had that discussion about it, and that's what I'm seeing, where the role is changing you
So
know,
it's
almost on
becoming
a daily basis, you know, and now a lot of the federal regulations are coming out that I think are even going to be tying even more into it on how this role, you know, is on the leadership part of the company.